Hi, everyone. Welcome to Gruff Talk, where each week we take a deep dive into all the ways we can feel better, look better, live better, and age better. I'm your host, Barbara Hannah Grufferman. Well, today I have my first repeat guest. I'm so excited. I'll be talking with Heidi Skolnik, co-author of the New York Times bestseller and wildly successful The Whole Body Reset, a book that Heidi co-wrote with Stephen Perrine from AARP, which sheds light on how to stop age-related weight gain with the power of protein timing. If you haven't heard the episode yet, just scroll all the way back to episode number 3 and enjoy. But listen to this one first. Don't leave now. Not yet. Heidi is a nutritionist and exercise scientist who works with professional athletes, Broadway stars, and also oversees performance nutrition for Julliard and the School of American Ballet. She's written several books focusing on nutrition, and I should add that Heidi and I spent many years together serving on the board of the Bone Health and Osteoporosis Foundation, so we go way, way, way back. Today, Heidi and I will talk through the most important vitamins and nutrients women should be getting to stay strong and healthy and the best ways to get them. And then we'll get some great tips from Heidi on how to keep from packing on those extra pounds during the holiday season. Oh, it's so hard, I know, but I promise you Heidi's guidance will really, really help. And the show will begin right after this. Stay tuned. Hello, Heidi, and welcome back to Gruff Talk. You are my very first repeat guest. Yay!
Yahoo!
Oh, that's so fun. Yay. How does it feel to be the first?
I love it. Are you kidding? I'm flattered. So thank you. You've been doing great work. It's been exciting to watch your podcast grow and to listen each week. So I'm honored.
Thank you so much. You know, it's really fun for me because I get to meet and speak to people who are, some of the best experts in so many different fields to help us all age better. So I always learn a great deal from my guests. So it's been so fun for me, and I hope to continue to do this for many, 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 many years to come. Okay, Heidi, I always love to kick off each show with this warm-up question. And because the focus today is on food and nutrition, it's a very, very important question to ask you. So Heidi, okay, what did you have for breakfast today?
One of my 3 most favorite meals of the day. So for breakfast today, I had Greek yogurt with fresh mixed berries.
Check.
Check
for me.
Then I had a slice of whole grain bread, which I get at a local artisanal, which I know everyone can't do this, but I happen to live by this unbelievable bakery. So this is like fresh made whole grain bread with avocado and smashed avocado. And I just sprinkle a little salt on that.
Yum, yum, yum.
That's pretty much what I have most days. Oh, did you?
Yeah. You know what? Ever since I had you and Stephen Perrine on the show, at the very beginning, actually, you were guests in episode number 3, believe it or not. And this is episode 31. And you were talking about your book, The Whole Body Reset, and protein timing and the like. And by the way, for those of you who have not yet heard that one, please, after this, don't leave. After this one, scroll back to number 3 and do listen. But, you talked about timing and having your protein early in the day. So I've really stuck to that. So yeah, I started with a protein bar. I always have part 1 and part 2. Then I had my Greek yogurt and berries. Okay, so we have a lot to talk about, so let's get to it. First, we're going to talk about the foods and nutrients women in midlife should eat to age successfully to keep bones dense, muscles strong, energy up, brain healthy, and so on. And some of the best ways to get those foods and nutrients. And then we'll get your best tips for how to not overeat during the holiday season. I know that's so hard to do, not to overeat, not to overdrink, but anyway. So Heidi, first question. What are those nutrients women in midlife really need?
Of course, there are several. And you're right, we'll talk about nutrients and then we'll talk about food because people don't eat nutrients, they eat food. But we really continue to need calcium, right? We built this bone bank that if we're not taking in calcium, we have to withdraw from our bone bank, our bones. And so we don't want to withdraw too much and cause, fragile bones and weak bones. So we do want to continue to take in calcium. And that ranges where you are in, whether you're still menstruating or not, anywhere from 1,100 to 1,300 milligrams a day. Vitamin D, because without that vitamin D, you can't absorb the calcium.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I just want to interrupt you for one second about vitamin D. You, of course, know about that whole, it was a bit controversial ruling, if you will, about vitamin D, the new study that came out saying it doesn't really help to reduce fractures in people. But then, once you really look at the research, it really depended upon a lot of things. And every doctor and medical expert and nutritionist I spoke to after that said that they're still recommending that people take their vitamin D.
So here's the thing about vitamin D. You're right. If your levels are high, if you're in the range you need to be, which is about 40 to 60, you don't need to take vitamin D because you don't need to supplement. You already have an adequate level. The challenge, and I think in that study, if I remember correctly, they didn't differentiate starting levels. Mm-hmm. So then how do we know what was working and what wasn't and what people's numbers were? So it really kind of became irrelevant if I'm thinking of the right study. If you live above Georgia, in the winter, you're probably not getting enough vitamin D because you're not outside. It's very hard to get enough through food. And so if you're not outside getting in sunlight, so you can convert that into vitamin D, then you probably need to supplement or your numbers will go low. You never need to supplement. The same thing with calcium. You don't need calcium supplements if you're taking in enough in your diet. You only need calcium supplements if you're not taking enough in your diet.
Right.
So you don't need to supplement any of the foods we're going to talk about today necessarily if you're getting it through your diet. But the chances are for vitamin D, there's a high percentage of people that are walking around without knowing that they have low vitamin D.
Right. Unless they get the blood test that shows what their number is, correct?
So that study, which got a lot of attention, unfortunately didn't really give the full picture.
Right. As it relates to bone health and fractures. But then, as we know, there were so many other benefits of having a normal range of vitamin D in your body.
It's a hormone.
Brain
it does a lot
health,
of
so many other things that's why so many of these medical experts I spoke to afterwards say, just keep taking it. Don't go overboard. Your level shouldn't be too high.
Yeah.
Because there are so many benefits to vitamin D. Right?
Yeah, and you may not need to take it in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's very hard to know what your levels are unless you get some kind of baseline. Mm-hmm. And then once you're high, you may stop taking your supplement. You might take your supplement in the winter and then not in the summer and then ramp up again in September, October, or you may not need it till November, December for only 2 or 3 months. I can't say that, right?
Right. So I interrupted you. So you were going down your list and we stopped at vitamin D to talk about this little study. So proceed.
So, magnesium, you also need magnesium to absorb the vitamin D. I think that's a nutrient that many women probably don't get enough in. And I think you could get it through your food or you could take like a 1-a-day vitamin. Like, again, we're not talking about mega dosing and tons of separate pills. Just take a 1 a day. And not for heart health. The studies have said like a 1 a day doesn't help. You reduce cardiovascular risk, but there's a lot of other things that we care about. Fiber is one that people don't think of when we talk about nutrients because it's not a vitamin or a mineral, but fiber is so important. And we talk a lot about it in the Whole Body Reset and the importance of fiber because fiber, especially like we hear so much about probiotics and keeping our gut health healthy. And that's really key to so much. Like you and I both could eat blueberries, but not get the same amount of flavonoids, or we could both eat calcium, but not absorb the same amount based on our gut health. And so keeping our gut health healthy is really important and has been shown to change with age. Our biological versus chronological age is sort of shows the difference in our health. And prebiotics, we've heard so much about probiotics, which is the actual like a healthy bacteria that we introduce to our system when, let's say you eat yogurt, that fermented food, right? We're giving ourselves these probiotics. But prebiotics feed the probiotic. And these are fiber these come from fiber-rich foods. And so having enough fiber is actually important to keep your gut healthy. And I don't think we think about that.
No, most people don't. I know I never thought about it. And coincidentally, on another episode of Gruff Talk, I did have an expert on the gut microbiome, and he opened up my eyes, and to those listening in, I'm sure, to the importance of gut health in ways I never imagined, and also how to keep it healthy, like with fiber. Fiber is clearly essential.
Yeah, very much so. And then it has the added benefit of helping it to keep us full, and it's mostly a nutrient-rich food. So there's all these other nutrients you're getting from the same foods that have fiber, that provide fiber. You're also going to get many of the other nutrients we just talked about. Omega-3 fatty acids. And again, interesting with that, I think what we're learning more about, also highlighted I learned this in the research for the whole body reset. I didn't know this before that we were doing the research, and probably because it's still kind of new, and I think we'll learn more and more about it over the next few years, is the role that healthy fats play in keeping our muscle healthy. Probably has to do something with the mitochondria, which is the energy house of our cells, and preventing it from becoming less effective. It may have to do with anti-inflammation. The same thing with the fiber. It's not the fiber in this case, it's the nutrients that are found in fruits and vegetables that are anti-inflammatory that also help our muscles. Those who had more fruits and vegetables had better muscle sort of integrity or health as we age.
And we never really think, until you discover this research for the book, we never really thought about fruits and vegetables and muscle. Like we always thought about protein and, meat sources and muscle, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I did not know that connection as well. I was very much focused on the protein timing aspect of it and making sure that you're distributing your protein throughout the day to hit that, to hit that muscle building button as we get older.
Right.
So really, really interesting. I think we do need to highlight that again, that idea of how we maintain muscle as we age, because that's midlife is when we begin to lose muscle about 1% per year. And we become what's called anabolically resistant. When you're younger, you're in a growth place and you put on muscle pretty easily. As we get older, we become resistant to building muscle and maintaining muscle. We're in breakdown phase, and we need more protein to press that muscle building button, so to speak, to get over that resistance. And that's about 25 to 30 grams of protein, a little less if you're small, a little more if you're larger. But that's about the amount you need per meal. And most people, it is at breakfast, though it could also be at lunch, where they just don't, you have some oatmeal and you think this is really nutritious, which it is, but there's no protein in that. Very little protein. There's a little bit of protein, but not enough. So it's not until you have a yogurt, and it's not just having a small yogurt, you really, a little like 5.3 ounces, you need about a cup. Or unless you're having with the oatmeal and you put some nuts in that oatmeal, and then combined, it might reach that 25 to 30 grams. But you do need to pay attention to that. So there's that, because maintaining our muscle is what maintains our health and our function. It's really imperative to pretty much most of the diseases we think of with aging. And we could come back and talk a little bit more about that if you'd like. But the last nutrient would be B12, which there's a percentage of us as we get older that we just don't produce intrinsic factor, and we just don't absorb as well vitamin B12 from food. And so again, the amount you would find in a multivitamin is adequate to give you the B12. And certainly if you're trying to follow a vegan lifestyle, you don't get B12 except in maybe nutritional yeast. So then you definitely need to, you have to, and that's at any age.
Right.
But B12 would be I think the last nutrient I would highlight.
So you mentioned that really, for the most part, your recommendation in general is that people get these nutrients from food first, supplementation if needed, right? So what are some of the best foods to eat to make sure that we're getting these essential nutrients?
Well, the good news is that there's this overlap. I mean, certainly there's certain foods that are higher in different nutrients. But for instance, magnesium-rich foods are nuts and seeds. So whether it's almonds or cashews or pumpkin seeds or sesame seeds also happen to have some calcium in them. Almonds have some calcium in them. Spinach, rice, dark chocolate, black beans, tofu, edamame. So, you could look that up, but, those are foods that have magnesium. For calcium, it's certainly dairy is, in the book, we're very dairy friendly because it's easy, accessible, right?
Yeah.
It's inexpensive.
Relatively inexpensive. Mm-hmm.
It's rich in nutrients. It's nutrient rich. Has a lot of calcium, most of them, not all of it. And high in leucine, which is an amino acid that also is like a spark plug when it comes to building muscle. But you can get it from non-dairy sources as well. So anyway, yogurt and milk, I think people know that. And cheese, ricotta cheese is particularly high, but cheese, Parmesan, cottage cheese, not as much. It has a little more protein. So, and the same thing with Greek yogurt, it doesn't have quite as much as some regular yogurt or some of the cheeses, but it does. And then, sardines actually have more calcium than a glass of milk. But I don't think as many people, like in my parents' generation, sardines were definitely on the menu. I don't see as many of my peers eating sardines in other cultures where we think, well, they don't drink as much dairy. They don't, consume as much dairy, but they consume more fish with bones in them.
Correct. Right? Certainly when you're looking in Asian populations. But, it's so funny. I am a peer of yours, kind of.
Yeah.
And I love sardines. I love opening up a little tin of sardines. Yeah. Especially with a little olive oil and, kind of twist them open as they do. It's so cool how many of the cans are and eating them just right from the little tin. So yeah, I love it. I'm the only one in my family who does though, by the way.
So I didn't think nobody had it, but good that you do. Just I don't see it as being quite as popular. And that's great that it does. It's high in calcium and it actually is a good source of vitamin D. And the oil that you refer to helps you absorb, a little bit of fat helps you absorb all the nutrients.
Oh,
so
good
it is
to know.
such a nutrient-rich food. But going with alternatives, the thing I think that people have to understand is yes, broccoli has 100 milligrams of calcium. That's great. But that would mean you need 10 cups of broccoli.
Right.
So all of those other foods contribute. Almonds, same thing. Great nutrient positive food. Absolutely. But it takes a lot of almonds to reach your calcium needs. So, mix and match and that's sort of how we get there. And if you're using dairy alternatives, then most of them you just want to make sure they're fortified, and that fortified helps because it's in with other nutrients and other foods, but it's sort of
I just want to just mention something about calcium, about milk in particular. I found that as I got older, it was harder for me to digest milk, regular milk. I do add a little dab of heavy cream into my coffee in the morning. But I find that regular milk, I've switched over to almond milk, for example, or oat milk sometimes, which I know doesn't really have the same level of calcium. So what do you say to people who are
I think there's
having
two
issues with that?
There's a difference between someone like yourself who you like milk, but you stop drinking it because lactate milk has all the same nutrients and it's real milk, but it lacks the enzyme or it puts in the enzyme that you're lacking in order to make sure that you don't suffer from lactose intolerance, right? With that. So, and in fact, that's what I'm sipping now. I make my own hot cocoa or my own chai at home where I use real milk. So I'm getting in my calcium, it's just another way to do it. And then cheeses often, like the hard cheeses don't have, lactose is a milk sugar. So cheeses don't have that. So you don't have to eliminate all dairy. Like you may not drink milk, but you could still have other dairy. You could have yogurt.
Yeah, I have yogurt every day with my blueberries and walnuts.
But I will say something like almond milk, which is really almond water, it's fortified. So it might have calcium, but it only has 1 gram of protein, whereas cow's milk has 8 grams of protein per cup. So it's not giving you the same. Cow's milk has 11 different nutrients in it. So you're not getting all the other like potassium and niacin. Like you're not getting all the other nutrients, but it's fine. Everyone makes their own choices. I don't care where you get it from. I just care you get it in. Everyone has their own preferences and their own food selection. And so you figure it out.
So how do you know when it's best to take a supplements? Like you mentioned vitamin D, for example, certainly if you live above Georgia, as you said, right. North of Georgia,
right.
you may not be getting enough vitamin C from the sun and the
Vitamin
like.
D.
So maybe supplementation is
Yeah.
a good idea.
Yeah.
Any other supplements? I think B12 that you said we might need to supplement, but that's we can get that in like the right amount from just a daily multivitamin.
Exactly.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So nothing too complicated here.
Nothing complicated.
All right. I want to put a spotlight on protein timing for a moment because I found that to be fascinating when you both were on and when I read the book before you were on the show. And I am following that program and I have been for many months now, as is my husband. And, it's a New York Times bestselling book, which was so great, The Whole Body Reset. Give us the highlights of what you and Stephen propose in the book and in the Whole Body Reset plan.
The highlights from the book are that as we get older, we think it's our metabolism that is slowing down, but in fact, it is not our metabolism. That our nutrient needs actually change. The way our body processes nutrients change as we age. And one of the things that is most apparent is this loss of muscle that happens as we age. So a lot of the I'm not talking about we all have different bodies. We're born with different bodies, right? We have different body shapes, sizes. That all could be celebrated and body acceptance. We're talking about age-related weight gain. That is different than just our different body sizes. So a lot of that age-related weight gain, people would say, oh, it's because my metabolism is lowering. But it's really because starting midlife and beyond, we begin to lose muscle at 1% per year. So, as I was mentioning before, what happens is our metabolism might lower because now we don't have as much active tissue, not because it's not able to work, it's because we don't have that active tissue, that active muscle. And in order to maintain our muscle, which is related to our ability to clear glucose, right? So our incidence of, let's say, diabetes, blood pressure, heart disease, cognitive function, mobility, bone health, like so many different conditions and diseases that we think of as we age is related to muscle or how much muscle we have. We want to exercise. We want to do resistance training, not just cardiovascular, right? Resistance training, which many people are not accustomed to once or twice a week as we get older. That allows us to use our nutrition to maximize it. And from the nutrition standpoint, making sure we get that protein, 25 to 30 grams of protein at every single meal. So 3 or 4 times a day to help maintain that muscle to prevent losing as much muscle as we age.
I remember the two of you pointed out, rightly so, that the majority of people, at least living in America, tend to get the majority of their protein late in the day. That's when they sit down and maybe have the steak or the chicken breast for dinner, and they're not usually getting that protein early in the day. They might just have a slice of toast. They might just have awful, but a donut.
Yeah.
So they may not be getting it. And this was a really big eye-opener for me, was the timing of it. For me, what my personal takeaway was, the timing has to be earlier in the day and throughout the day, as you pointed out.
Right. I think you're exactly right. Most people eat, first of all, this is not a high protein diet.
Right.
So it is not a high protein diet. It's adequate protein eaten at each meal. It's a little higher than the RDI because the RDI or RDA was not established. Even dietary patterns that have been well researched, like the Mediterranean diet, which of course we support and can get behind. But there's no acknowledgement of the aging body when you look at the Mediterranean diet. There's no direction about how to distribute the protein that you're consuming throughout the day. Same thing with the DASH diet. So the whole body reset, it doesn't matter what dietary pattern you want to follow, except for intermittent fasting, which means you would be skipping breakfast.
Yeah, we had a long talk about that during the episode.
Right.
So it's tricky to kind of, increase your protein early in the day if you're not eating anything.
Yeah, exactly. And this, the few studies that I've seen on that show that, in fact, you lose more muscle. You might lose fat. The goal is not just to lose fat. The goal is not just to lose weight. Let me clarify. It's not to lose weight. It's to maintain muscle. It's to lose fat and maintain muscle. And maintaining that muscle is the most important.
Yeah. So now I think we should stop there with that because it's the perfect segue to what I want to talk about next with you. And that is over to the holiday season. It's a beautiful and fun time of the year, sure, when we might be seeing more family and friends and possibly overindulging with food and drink, right? I think that's true of everyone. I think this is a challenge for all of us, and we need your tips, Heidi. What do you have for us to stay the course, to still keep to our healthy eating plan and try our best not to overdo and gain any extra weight in the coming weeks? What do we do?
I'm of a divided mind here, I have to be honest.
Okay, let's hear it.
We didn't get to talk before.
You're going to cut us some slack.
I am. I think that, so I said divided mind, I'm going to get to some tips, but I also want to say that this idea of fearing food and creating anxiety around what should be a really wonderful time of the year, and being so weight-centric as we tend to be, can be in and of itself really negative on our health, right? It can really zap the holidays of feeling good. And this idea of indulgence versus like we're entitled to eat. Food should be nourishing and functional and celebratory and pleasurable and all of those things. And so I think sometimes we give too much focus. Like if I told you for the next 30 seconds, I don't want you to, okay, are you ready for this? You're going to do this with me? Okay, for the next 30 seconds, I don't want you to think about elephants. Go. Right? And so all you can do is think about elephants. Yeah. And so it's the same thing when you go to a party and all you're thinking about is, I better not eat too much. I better not eat that cake. I better not have that appetizer. I better not. I just think it actually causes us to want it more. So we have to back this whole conversation up to how we view food year round. And if you allow yourself to eat year round, I think people confuse the idea of sort of this food freedom and intuitive eating to meaning that you are only going to eat cookies and cakes and, pick your thing, ice cream and rich pastas with cheese on top or whatever it is, and that's not what it means. What it means is that you pause, you think about, what do I really feel like having right now? Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's creamy, sometimes it's crunchy. Sometimes I really want a great stir fry. Sometimes I want a steak. Sometimes I want carrots and sometimes I want a cookie. Like it's not all the same. And if I let myself have the cookie, I can move on with the day. And if I say I can have a cookie today and a cookie tomorrow and a cookie the next day, when cookies are in front of me, it's not like, oh, I better eat them all now because I'm never going to eat them again. So there's that, right?
There's that.
And the other thing is then how we approach the holidays in and of it, like, again, how we approach it. So are the holidays for you Christmas Day, or Christmas meal, or are the holidays, did it start at Thanksgiving or did it start at Halloween and with Easter?
I think Halloween.
So, that's a really long time. Right. That's a really long time.
Yep.
And so, again, it's really, they're just days, right?
Yes.
And if you allow yourself candy all year round, then Halloween is just like, okay, there's more candy, but I can have it tomorrow, the next day, the next day. It's not like, oh my God, I only have candy this one day. So
that's brilliant.
Yeah. But having said that, clearly there might be more parties, there might be more events. And so let's back it up again. What ends up happening? I know for me, not getting enough sleep is a big deal.
Oh, it's a big deal. Yeah.
So is there, like, depending on your schedule, and I do think this matters, if you're really talking about only 3 days with your family, let's not go there. But if you're really talking about, your work and life schedule do mean that you're going to holiday parties, 4 days a week or whatever. And that, then it's a different way to manage. When is it a night? What do you need to do to get a good night's sleep? How do you maintain your patterns? Not exact, because you cut yourself a break. It's a certain time. This isn't all year round, but can you get movement in? Right? Because for me, again, movement really helps me. So can I maintain, if I can't get the same workout, can I get a mini workout in? Not to burn off.
Or a snack, as they call it now. Like that's the trending word, an exercise snack.
But this isn't because I want to burn off what I ate, right? It's not like I have to earn what I'm going to eat or burn off what I eat. it's because it helps me feel good and stay centered when there's all this activity going on around, all the socializing, it's a different, again, way of thinking about it. And then it's the same thing with patterns around food. So it's not like you don't eat all day to save up your calories for that party. Have breakfast, have lunch, have a snack, and go to the party. And then you can choose what you want to eat that you can enjoy without being so hungry that you do want to gobble everything up. And then it feels bad because you overindulge. That's when you overeat. I mean, it's semantics, but I don't even like the word indulge, because for me, again, like a ripe mango is proof that there's God. Like, I feel like that's such an indulgence, right? Like, I love that. So I don't feel more indulged when I have a ripe mango versus an ice cream sundae. And it's semantics, but I think how we talk to ourselves around foods matter, because it implies things, and it begins to, we begin to I was so bad, I overate last night. Well, I wasn't bad. I'm not bad or good based on my eating. It's not my moral compass. It doesn't define who I am. I may not feel comfortable when I eat too much. And so that should hopefully inform me. And again, back it up. Why did I eat too much? Because I didn't eat all day. Whereas if I wasn't so hungry, if I walked in just sort of hungry, not starving, I can look at all of the delicious foods and decide which ones of them, how much of them do I want. You don't have to eat perfectly to eat healthfully. That's just not true.
Yeah.
So if you really want that eggnog, have the eggnog.
I'm so with you on that. And I hope that everyone listening will embrace everything you've just been saying, because it's so important, not just during the holiday season, but throughout your lives, your relationship with food, how you view it, how you talk about it. And movement too. I agree. I mean, for me, I do find I'll have more desserts and the like, but I do not have a problem with it. I will eat what I want. I'll just go ahead and eat what I want and be very happy about it. So I don't have an issue with it. I do find I try to increase my movement a little bit more, but sometimes during the holidays with everything else that we have going, that may not always be a possibility either. But just cut the slack and enjoy yourself. This is the time of year to really enjoy yourself. I mean, enjoy yourself all year long, throughout your life, right? Yes. Life should be a party, Heidi.
Well, no, but that's why I'm saying of two minds, because, it's not quite that. I mean, yes, it still helps. It still helps to, it still helps to, and especially for those who do really find it challenging. I think it helps to look at the food that's available. So you kind of know which are the ones you really want to eat. What you really want to eat, or to balance it out, make sure you do get some protein in, to get some vegetables in, to balance it out so it isn't really calorically dense food that doesn't satisfy, that tastes good and there's a satisfaction from that, but doesn't actually stay with you so you're hungry again. I think it's good. So I still think, again, many of the things we talked about, like, that idea of half your plate's from vegetables and then add your protein. Like, you don't have to be like that perfect again. But I think it is helpful to maintain the patterns that work for you, which is, again, eating regularly, moving regularly.
Getting enough sleep,
and then including foods that taste good and are pleasurable, along with other foods that may be a little bit more sustaining.
Right. And also trying to really keep your stress levels at bay, because, this can be a stressful time of year where you have to kind of make sure you're getting gifts from people or traveling somewhere, or, making sure that special meals are on the table. Whatever it is that you're doing, it can be stressful. I'm not saying it is. And as we know, a lot of people fall into that stressful eating pattern.
And that's why I think there's two sides to this. One is, I would hope if you could use this time to, like I said, back it up and see year round versus those who are really struggling or in recovery, or, feel they're around family who make comments. That's the other time, is how can you be compassionate to some other people in your family who may struggle around food? Right. Meaning, don't tell them what to eat. Don't comment on what they are or are not eating. Don't comment on how, instead of saying, wow, you look great, say, oh, wow, it's so good to see you. I can't wait to spend time with you. It seems subtle, but the person on the receiving end who may be struggling, it's received in a very different way, because they don't want to feel judged. They don't want to feel other people are being critical of them. And so, making sure that when you do look at what you're offering, that it isn't just chips and salads. Like you do have some vegetables available with some great dips, hummus or yogurt dip or whatever. So that just there's some options available. And, other things like recognizing that you can move away from the table. Like I know in our family, a lot of times we finish the meal and then we could sit there. And what are we sitting with? The dessert. And if you're a picker, if you're somebody, if that's hard for you, as opposed to moving away from the table, let's go in the other room, finish the conversation there. Or if you need to take a break from your family, forget about the food part, just from the stress part, to just take a walk around the block. If you can have a friend you can call, or, there's a family member who's sort of an ally where you could give a signal and go, let's go, and they'll go with you. So it's sort of, you're just taking a little recenter break.
Mm-hmm.
And then, focusing on what is the conversation and the being with the family as opposed to focusing so much on the food.
Mm-hmm.
Can also just be helpful to remember that there's other things to focus on.
All right, Heidi, this was, as always, incredibly helpful. And I know you'll be back. As I said earlier, you are my first repeat guest, and you always have something to tell us about nutrition and movement, and always shedding new light. So I know you will be back and talk with us, and we always have so much fun.
I'm going for a three-peat.
Repeat, yes.
3 peats.
Yep. Before I let you go, please talk us through 3 key takeaways that you want to make sure the Gruff Talk audience remembers from today's conversation.
1, protein timing. That 25 to 35 grams of protein at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That will help you maintain muscle as you age. 2, try to maintain your normal patterns as much as possible this holiday season, while still allowing for some self-compassion that you may not be able to do that all the time. And that 3, mindset matters. To instead of an all or none approach to the season, select the foods you enjoy. You don't need to indulge or restrict, but rather enjoy, which means visiting with family and friends and still taking care of yourself. And if that means some downtime, take some downtime.
Thank you for that, Heidi. And I wish you a wonderful, wonderful holiday season.
You too, Barbara.
And a very, very happy new year.
Thanks so very much.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode of Gruff Talk, please do 2 things. First, share it with all your friends and family, and subscribe to Gruff Talk wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, so you never miss a single episode. Until next time, remember this: we can't control getting older, but we can control how we do it. Talk to you soon. Age Better Podcast is a proud member of the Sound Advice Network. Sound Advice, women's voices amplified.